All right, welcome to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samuel?
Well, we've got Path of Daggers, and as we've had before, I have the hardback, and you probably have. Oh, you have the
Crossroads of
hardback.
Twilight, not Path of Daggers.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Your
Crossroads of
brain doesn't
Twilight.
work.
Yeah,
I told you
I
you're
have.
too old to stay up till 4 a.m.
Yeah, it happens, but it was a special occasion. And yeah, sorry this wasn't out on Friday. We had a friend in need that turned out to not
Not
be
be in need.
in need.
So I got a 6 hour drive, 6 hour round trip drive just to hang out and go to a Chinese food buffet. Which incidentally, as we sat down,
Did
Chuck
y'all go
tells
to the
me
one in Copper's Cove or in Colleen?
in Killeen
Oh,
that
the one in
used to be a
Copper's Cove is
Luby's.
so good.
No. The one he took me to after we sat down, he said, this used to be a Luby's. And it took me a minute. And he said, the Luby's. I said, wow, what a interesting place to bring me. I find it even more creepy when Pokemon Go was really big. He said there would always be like crowds of youngsters in the parking lot trying to catch Pokemon, and it's a historic site because like a dozen people were murdered. Eh.
Yeah. Well, there's a new game. It's like a Monster Hunter where you go around and find these monsters in the
Just
neighborhoods and stuff.
augmented reality stuff.
Yeah, because Ben runs around the neighborhood now, which gets him outside, which he's a
Yeah,
pasty,
that's fine.
blonde-headed white boy, so that
Yeah.
helps. But
All right, so we were going to start since we finished Winter's Heart last time. We were going to start with the comments because there shouldn't
oh yeah,
really be much in the way of spoilers since we were finishing up the book. So if there's anything to kind of clean up there, and then we'll get into the prologue of Crossroads of Twilight.
let me pause real quick so I can get that up.
All right, so I jumped up there when we paused to grab my copy of The Eye of the World because Scott has an interesting comment here, and I'm not sure what he means. But my son has my copy of The Eye of the World because he was going to start reading it. But so
Okay, do you know what the first comment's about? I absolutely agree with you about my message last week. I failed to make myself clear and succinct.
I don't remember.
Uh, okay, so go into your Eye of the World, and I will look to see what the comment was from last week.
All right, no, that's what I'm saying. I don't have my copy of The Eye of the World, so you're going to have
Oh
to.
yeah, that's right.
Um, so so the comment that jumped out at me was
9, chapter 9.
yeah, I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Anyway, so some readers think
Tellings of
Jordan
the Wheel.
changed
Well,
things
that would
about the
be a
plot and structure of the earlier books. And he had said in Q&As and things that yeah, there were some things that shifted or he wasn't exactly sure how he was going to do a thing. But he knew this thing was going to happen. But the idea that he changed plot and structure in any sort of big way, that's just silly. I disagree, says Scott. Jordan had at least the bones of the story from the very beginning. My evidence, book one, The Eye of the World, chapter 9, foreshadows the ending almost completely. Did you mean the ending, this ending, Winter's Heart, or of the series?
I
What
think
is what is
he's
chapter
talking about the
9?
series because chapter 9 is a dream with Rand, and he's in the dream world running, and he's shaking his fist at the dark one at the big mountain, and it looks like it's Shao Ghul, not Dragon Mount. And yeah, but it's the dream world. I mean, it's kind of like the Darth Vader Luke Skywalker scene in Empire Strikes Back, where Rand is just like, "No, you're not my father."
Hmm. I'm gonna have to get my
Yeah, we're gonna.
copy back and look
Yeah,
at
we'll
that
have
and
to read that in
think a
depth.
little deeper about that, about what's going on there. Um,
Yeah, but it does parallel the end of the book a lot. So not to be spoilery, we'll just leave it at that for now. It does kind of parallel what happens in the last battle a little bit. So I'm gonna
yeah,
go ahead and mark
well,
that.
and then there's so much of that, but
Well,
Jordan
you've
kind of
mentioned before that Jordan wrote the ending before he wrote the rest of the
yes.
book, but then everything between was kind of free flowing.
So Well, from my understanding and the things I've read, he did a lot of planning, but it was still things had to adjust because as it kind of, as it actually starts to happen, then, as we've said before, there's textbook and then there's real life practical. So
Mm-hmm.
certain things did have to shift because it wasn't working in reality and practice like it did in his head when he was planning it out. But he'd said a number of times that the genesis of the story was the very last scene. That
Mm-hmm.
that just kind of out of the blue popped into his head, and then he kind of worked backwards from there. And then of okay, well, how did this guy get here? How did this hero get here? What kind of a hero was he? And then he kind of worked backwards from there. And so in a lot of ways, he had to do a lot of planning because he was setting up something big and epic, and he was working backwards. So most definitely there was a lot of structure and bones there, and it's, you know, continues to be in evidence. I mean, the first chapter of this, the opening chapters of this book, you have someone named Noel who you should kind of already guess who he is. But I mean, that bit was set up in the first few chapters just with the title of a popular book.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I thought it was really tough going into this because we almost could do a whole episode on the freaking prophecy that he opens with. And it shall come to pass in the days when the dark hunt rides, when the right hand falters and the left hand strays, that mankind should come to the crossroads of twilight, and all that is, all that was, and all that will be shall balance on the point of a sword while the winds of the shadow grow. And we could do a whole freaking episode, an hour-long episode speculating about all of that. Because to me, the left and the right hand are Perrin and Rand. Or not Perrin and Matt, excuse me. And in this book, Perrin is basically going back on all his character development and sacrificing what should be done for his own personal emotions, which is what Perrin doesn't do by nature, but he does when his wife is involved. And Matt strays. Well, Matt is kind of going by the wind. He's letting fate take him along the way. He thinks he's clever, but he realistically is just going with the flow. So it's, to me, that's my interpretation, but I mean, we could take that a million different ways.
Yeah. Well, and just actually my first note is on that prophecy. So let's finish up with these and then we'll get to that.
Okay, so we're back to the comments. The writers of the TV show are really going to come up against it soon. I think they've already come up against it. Sorry. How messed up will they make the story when Moiraine disappears for 7 books because they have strayed from the canon and are going to have to change the entire story?
Yeah.
I think what they already did with Moiraine was their version of her being gone. Her not being able to channel for half a season was their version of her not being there. Personally, I think it's going to be completely different from here on out.
I have been suspecting from from the beginning that they might just completely ignore that major story point because they made Moiraine the main character of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get rid of her and for that long? Not only have they made her the main character, they've done a really piss poor job of developing the other characters.
Well, and not only that, the way they're playing Lanfear, I think she's already gone through the Sindane transformation. Now she's wanting to spite the dark by the end of the 2nd season in the show. She's already showing signs of I don't like what's going on. So I think that whole plot that is in the books and is probably one of the most important things in the books is already completely played out in their own way, which is the stupid way. The greatest works of the prior age were performed by men and women wielding the power together. Once again, Rand, because of the memories, shows that he is truly an Aes Sedai, witnesses banner, which no Aes Sedai of this age ever comments on. It's fitting that Nynaeve is the one that works with Rand, since she's outside the entire tower structure and is probably the most Aes Sedai character of any character in the series. Aes Sedai meaning servant to all. All the other one power women in the book series, including Egwene, have changed that to everyone else is my servant. And this is where I completely 100% agree, which is why
And
I
this is
think
where I
Nynaeve was
mostly
necessary.
agree that that's a really good point. That um, Nynaeve is that, you know, is that cop who actually takes protect and serve to heart, like actually believes it,
Mhm.
versus the others who it's a paycheck and it's the thin blue line and it's the institution. And where I only mostly agree is that I think there is value in Egwene becoming at least partially an institutionalist, because the White Tower as an institution is important, not just now, but going forward. However, a major component of the um, uh, evolution that has to happen between this age and the next is a return to the idea of servants of all, that Aes Sedai as servants, the word meaning servant. See, getting just the tiniest glimpse of that in Rand's flashbacks, um, writing that they actually meant it, and the Aiel were an extension of that.
Mhm.
You know, that they were kind of the ultimate secular, if you will, extension of, of the, if the Aes Sedai is the church, then the Aiel were the ultimate extension, the NGO, the fraternal organization or whatever,
Mhm.
that is the actual kind of hands of that. Um, and
Well, where
it's a
I
point.
mostly, yeah, where I mostly agree is that we do see this, and I think Jordan was doing it very successfully to that it's a surprise that the full yin yang is there on these banners, and people just forgot the meaning. And
Mhm.
we see that evident in the behavior of the Aes Sedai. They forgot the meaning of what it is to be servants to all, and Swan especially, Swan Moraine especially. But where I disagree is Nynaeve's not the only one. Nynaeve is the best person for this situation, but I would like to throw people like Varen in there as well, because Varen was such a servant that she infiltrated the dark. She knew that the path she was going out of her curiosity was a path that was going to lead to death at some point. But she still did it. And yeah, her motives, we're still unclear on that, but it's very clear that she decided to use this inroad she had to do good in the long run.
uh, the point that jumps out to me the most there in that comment, and I can't remember if he ever addressed this, but I feel like it is a little bit of a plot hole of, surely someone should have noticed, commented on, or asked a question about what the heck is this banner where you have joined these two halves, the flame of Tar Valon and the dragon's fang, or as we know it, the black and white of the yin yang symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows from his memories this is the ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai. And you get that. um I think Varen may make reference to it in the Great Hunt when you kind of first learn the ancient symbol. Yeah, because they run into Aiel, who says, "Under this sign will he conquer," and he draws the ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai.
Mm-hmm.
So it is somewhat odd that you get so many people, and it's actually going to come up again in this book with Perrin's storyline, is so many people commenting on the Red Eagle of Manetheren. It becomes a major plot point actually in Perrin's storyline, and nobody has a thing to say about the ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai. It
Mm-hmm.
is an oddity, and I don't know if Jordan ever addressed it.
Well, one is 1,000 years removed, and the other's 3,000 years removed, so that
That's
makes
true.
somewhat difference. But no, yeah, I think that's part of the complacency, because you have this mythology where this person is supposed to be reborn and save the world, but also break it. you don't want any reminders of that. So you push that from your mind. Manatharin was nothing but good in the memories, right? They were the thorn in the Dark One's side. They were sacrificed in order to win the Trolloc Wars, basically.
Yeah.
So it's it's a positive memory, so there's no reason to push it from your cognition. Whereas you see this yin yang and you're like, yeah, I kind of know what that means, but I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe it, so I'm not going to. Because that, yeah, he will conquer there, but that's not always good by our prophecies.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is
that
the
that could be
conquering?
very bad.
Yeah, the conquering under partly at least under our sign. Yeah, I can see how you would want to ignore that.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, what's the next one? Metaphysics magnetism works like you were describing. Yes, that's exactly what I was describing when we were talking about that. Push pull yet connected, seemingly connected yet not, a force separated from the manifestations like gravity, atomic attraction at all. Yeah, it's the vibrations, man. It's all about the vibes.
Giggity.
Yeah. Uh it is ironic that Elsa destroys the Shiva. Yeah, we had a chuckle on that. I think it's interesting that Rand and Nynaeve use so much power that every channeler in the world could feel it. I
Mhm.
find the reactions in Egwene's camp especially amusing. Do you remember the details of the reactions?
No, we're going to get to that here
Okay. Yeah.
because we actually this book actually um similar to what happened with the Bowl of the Winds, and then in the next book he goes backwards in time a little bit to show you backwards from where that book ended to show you the reactions of people when they felt that power, primarily the Sanchin, but then also the reactions of as the weather started to turn. He's going to do that again in this book where we really didn't see, we saw Egwene, but we didn't see the Saladar Aes Sedai at all. And now we're going to get back to her, and that's going to include their reaction to that draw of the power. And I don't remember uh, who else is involved, but I know for sure they are. And I think one of the White Tower scenes may also involve them going, "Holy crap, what's that?" So yeah, we'll get into that when we get to those. But I remember I brought up because to me it is a smidge of a plot hole. It is a smidge of a convenience that more people didn't go to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
Yeah,
the
especially the people that could travel, like Elaine and Egwene at the time.
but even the Sanshin, they can't travel with capital T, but they can cover vast differences with their Tolraken. So
Mhm.
they could have sent flyers to investigate.
Yeah, and we even get them going after the fact to take a look.
We do get we see because
C-
I think it's in
oh,
the
it's a
the
spoiler,
little
but there's
tower.
somebody with the Shanshin that you would think would have gone that doesn't.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Is that it for the comments?
Yes. Yes, that was it.
Um.
Well, I like who we open this with
Yes.
because he's kind of a fun character. It gets a little annoying at parts, and I don't know. I just didn't like Sanderson's writing of that battle he's in later. But I do like that we get this Napoleonic type
Well, actually, we're not
character.
there yet because I'm still on the prophecy.
Oh, you're still on the prophecy. Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
let me get
because
out of the
so
meat of the book here.
I mean, to your point, how we could spend a whole episode on it. I mean, just the fact that he doesn't just give you like from the prophecies of the dragon or from the whatever, the title of the thing that means nothing to you, but it's part of the world building. But then he drops this on you that's translation believed done by Jane Charin, known as Jane Farstrider, shortly before his disappearance. Absolutely none of that is on accident. There's something there just in that, let alone from the poetry of the prophecy. Um, I'm curious about what you thought this meant because I don't want to go too much into it. Um, now because we'll get to it when we actually get to his parts of the story. But I didn't take it the way you took it. Um, to me, I was wondering, is this prophecy talking about Rand and how Rand is balanced between light and dark? And
Yeah,
and
well,
especially now and
no, I agree with you there. It is about him, but I think with the whole tryst of him and Matt and Perrin is they are his right and left hand, and when they have problems, Rand has problems.
and Perrin is faltering, acting out of character.
Perrin is doing the dumb right now.
And the left hand strays because Matt is kind of
He's distracted.
he's kind of wandering off on a side quest.
Yeah, exactly. And they're
He was
both
already kind of out of the loop, and now he's going to be even more out of the loop when the world needs him most.
and they're both doing it for women, realistically. One from just a blind rage standpoint, and the other from a curiosity standpoint. Matt is curious. He is looking for the little puzzle that he can make mischief with. And he completely got distracted from the goal, which is, oh my gosh, I was supposed to get Elaine to Camlin, and I was supposed to help Egwene, and oh, I do have this army that I'm not with, and all of these things that are important are things that he is not pursuing because he's kind of curious about Tuan.
That's a good point. Yeah, like I said, I hadn't thought about it like that. To me, I was wondering if the opening prophecy was, the uh the opening thesis of the book, which is about Rand's descent into darkness, um, and wondering, did he actually achieve that? But I think your reading of it is more on point, which means because my thinking was, is one of the flaws of the book that it seems to be setting out this arc for Rand that I don't know that it really achieves in this book.
Yeah, I think it achieves it over the course of the books. But yeah, you're right that to open with that prophecy implies that it's going to be part of the finale.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think you do get if Perrin and Matt are as important in Rand's direction as we like to make them, then you do get that, because that's why he's balanced on the end of a sword.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they do matters for his progression, even though he's not with them.
All right, so on to the actual prologue, and
well, no. Back to that one more second. We talk about
yeah.
this book as an overarching theme, because it really is described right here. Everything is on a balance while these two people do their random side quest thingies, and the shadow gets stronger the whole time. And that's basically describes this book.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So it is
especially
true.
when you consider how the book ends.
Yeah.
Which save that for later.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Rand has this pretty severe setback, you could say, at the end of this book. And in that way, that's probably a better way to look at the prophecy then, because Rand needs them and he doesn't have them, and he's about to suffer a massive setback. That's going to lead to some serious negativity. All right.
So next time on our Wheel of Time episodes, we'll be in the next book, because we just summarized this whole book. And
yes, and we are done.
And we are
okay.
Done. Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Please don't go
hit like, share, subscribe.
So before we started recording, you pointed out that it's kind of a shame the book itself is a slog, because you've got from page 15 to 94 here in the hardback, you've got a good chunk of story with a lot of interesting things happening that, like he kind of has the tendency to do, he teases something in the prologue that isn't actually going to happen in this book. It's going to happen in the next book.
Well,
which I feel like this late in the series is kind of annoying.
you've got Rodell, which is one of my is a good character. I think when you're looking at bringing the world together,
Mhm.
he's like the Napoleon of this whole series. You've got a little bit of Logain story, which I always like, and you've got one of my favorite kind of storylines going through the later books, which is the sisters in the tower hunting the black. And so you had those three elements, which is good.
Mhm.
And then you get Gawain, which is probably going to end up the
Yeah.
thumbnail because I want
Well,
everybody to be mad just starting this. But
sure. We'll get to that in a second. But to Scott's comment that we talked about earlier, again, the setup of of course things are set up. He goes to great pains to set things up. This letter that Isheralde has, that was set up back when I want to say Lord of Chaos, or maybe even before.
yeah,
Uh,
it's
because it,
Grendel's messenger, right?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was when we were seeing Grendel and Samael and their kind of cabals. That was one of the times Samael visited Grendel. She was doing this, and we didn't know what she was doing, but she, you know, sealed this letter and gave instructions about making sure it had blood on it, and and now, oh, that's what that was. So we see we see Jordan playing the long game here, which is important because the villains have to be playing the long game, or much like we ranted about on our last
Giggity.
stupid Prime.
Grendel
it-
playing the long game.
what giggity? She's a size queen for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, what's the point? Why are you laying plans when Lanfear can just walk through the foregate, setting it on fire, and no one can stop her?
Hey, series, do us one solid favor and get Kate Upton for
Oh,
Grendel, and
right.
I will forgive you of all your sins if she has a topless scene. So that is my
All
deal to
right.
you. We will sing your praises to our
Greatest
50 followers.
series ever.
Yeah.
Yes, it will go from the toilet to greatest series ever
Well, what was
overnight.
even that movie that they finally paid Halle Berry like quarter
Yeah, it
million
was a terrible
dollars
movie.
to
It,
take
it
off her shirt?
was
It had a
Hugh
freaking
Jackman was like a swordfish.
swordfish. Yes, the
Yeah.
movie was horrible, but they paid $250,000 for her to take off her shirt, and then she goes and does the scene later with Billy Bob Thornton. That is like one of the craziest sex scenes in a mainstream movie ever,
Mhm.
for free, basically. It was like you just
Nope, I
wasted a
got
quarter
paid.
million dollars. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. So I I I made this reference before. I think when we were doing our Wheel of Time stuff, is that the Ahsoka series, and the big bad is Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's set up in the books as this, you know, uh,
Super genius. Yeah.
Moriarty type villain, but you can't do that if you can't write smart people. And
And you
and
can't write
and
smart people if you're not
yes,
smart people.
and so Thrawn is one of the people I was listening to said he's a stupid person's idea of what a smart person should be, and that's what you're getting in the series with.
Which is why people think I'm smart.
Well, which is why it's even more impressive when you look at uh, Ishi and Leandrin's scenes, because they are often really stupid, but the actors do so well that you kind of temporarily forget how dumb what is happening is. And so outside of those two, so much of what is happening is just dumb. It just makes no sense. But these are people who think they're smarter than the guy who wrote one of the top selling worldwide series of all time.
Yeah. But
All
it's
right.
problematic, so you can't.
Yes, it is.
You can use it to sell tickets to the show, but you can't use it for material.
All right.
That's
So moving along, I had another like tiny little note here. It's like the second or third page. Where is it? I don't need to cite it directly. So he's thinking about the weather, and then there's this line about how he doesn't need a weather wise to tell
mm,
him blah 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 blah, and that just jumped out at me because that's good world building.
hmm
he doesn't then define what a weatherwise is in his head, because
But
this
you
person
but you
wouldn't do
assume it's
that.
like a wisdom, or wisdom in the two rivers, or what, wise woman in the Aiel waste,
Wise
or
woman. We
yeah,
here in a little
yeah.
bit in one of the other scenes, we're going to get the term reader, is what they call them in Karheen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we've already introduced this concept, and now you just have this little tiny thing that, in the grand scheme of things, means
And it's some
absolutely nothing,
yeah,
but
and
it
it's something
adds to the tapestry.
yeah, and it's something they set up with the whole idea that there are women who can learn to channel but don't often manifest it. So they end up in these other professions because they have this feeling. They have a talent for these things, but they're not necessarily White Tower material because they would not make it past novices. And so they just gravitate towards that without ever realizing that they can channel. And so we've already had it set up that this exists. And it's not necessarily something that gets stepped on by the tower because they're not strong enough. But what we see from other people later is your strength doesn't matter if you have a talent for something. Well, we got earlier with a lady who could shield. That was part of the kin. She was super weak in the power, but nobody could break her shields. Started with a B, but
Yeah, I
Boyman
can't
or
remember.
something. Yeah. But no, G. Either way. But yeah, but she was super weak in the power, but her shields were like just super flexible rubber that nobody could break. And
So this is it goes along with what we ranted about with the Prime series, and they keep throwing these terms out there, and they keep saying these things that they think or they want to be impactful, but they haven't bothered to set up what it means. So if he had never bothered to set up, if Jordan had never bothered to set up this whole idea of, a wisdom, and that the whole network and thing that goes along with it, then that would be kind of funky. Is, wait, weather-wise, what? Huh? I mean, you could kind of context clue figure out what it meant, but it wouldn't have the same world building immersion that it has, because he has taken the time to set this up. When I was having dinner with Chuck, he asked, once again, I was asked, "Hey, have you watched season 3 of The Witcher?" And I had completely forgotten that I had watched it because it was so forgettable.
yeah, I can't
And
remember anything from it. I did watch it too. I
and
watched I watched some of the episodes twice and I still don't remember
the,
much
the
from
the
it.
big bald guy, he's apparently I like the actor. He's been in other stuff, so I like the actor, and I can see his face. Dijkstra
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
yeah.
McTavish. Gavin
So
McTavish, yeah.
Chuck was telling me about how important this character was in the book series, and about, all the kind of Machiavellian plans that he lays, and you don't get very much of that at all. They don't really set it up. Instead, they want to spend more time on the weird BDSM thing he has going with his witch girl protege thing, whatever the heck is going on there. And they don't really take the time to impress upon you how important he is and how important what he's doing is, so that when, kind of out of nowhere, almost, it's, oh, hey, you're assaulting the mages. I mean, you're literally assaulting the tower of the mages, them some big balls. But, in Chuck's telling, when you have all this groundwork that was laid in the short stories and in the novels, you believe that he can pull this off, and you understand why he's doing it. And in the series, it's just, oh, hey, there's a thing that's happening now. Okay, it just completely falls flat.
Yeah, we'll just have Moiraine come in and summon a giant dragon
Of course.
because that's how it works.
All right. So now my next note is on Gawain, but is he actually who's next? I can't remember. Um. Oh, the other thing he does before we leave this is, something worth mentioning is, we have heard the term the great captains, capital letters, capital G, capital C, the great captains, that this is a thing, and that there are
Mm-hmm.
these handful of people who are respected across the entire continent as great generals. And he's one of them. So he's
He's one of the remaining alive ones. Yeah,
one of the remaining alive. So
because we just lost the White Cloak general Pedron Nial.
He's already set the stage there, and then he doesn't need to lay out the whole plan, but he gives you enough to see, yeah, this is a guy, the wheels are turning. He's laying plans upon plans upon plans upon plans. So it's all fully believable and you're fully bought in and you're excited to finally see this person that you've only had mentioned because again, he actually laid the freaking groundwork. And then we get a scene with Eamon Valda and the children.
Yep.
Which, all right, it's interesting, but it's really just kind of put a pin in the map of okay, here's what's going on here.
Yeah, it's a let's give you some information about what's going on in this area.
I'm with you. I like the Logain scenes,
Yeah.
especially when it's from the point of view of the Aes Sedai that he's bonded. I really enjoy this.
And this
scene.
is why, again, we go back to the series. I hate to keep going back to it, but this is what got this rolling, is us complaining about it. Is Logain in the series is a madman. Logain in the books is a good dude. He's a misunderstood person. And once people start actually treating him properly, he becomes, more and more a hero every day.
You also see once Swan kind of pulls him out of his funk and gives him purpose. Oh, besides the fact that he could channel, there's a reason people followed this guy. He's actually pretty sharp. And he's got a good head on his shoulder and he's pretty sharp. So yeah, it's understandable why people followed him then and why people are following him again here.
Yeah,
he is a natural leader here.
And this isn't a spoiler, but we do see some interaction with him and Rand later. And Rand actually looks at him sideways in a lot of ways, but he also looks at him like, I should be more like him. He's actually the dragon we deserve, is the way Rand kind of treats him later. And that's kind of the impression you start getting with Logain going forward. Is yeah, he did some shitty things. He was in a desperate situation, which we talked about Rand, being in that desperate situation. You're the savior of the world, but also you're going to break it. And Logain was also in that position. Tame was also in that position. And when we see the decisions they go forward, we see how someone does it properly and how someone doesn't. And then Logain was also put in the position of losing everything. And sometimes when you lose everything and get it back, you become vengeful. But he lost everything and got it back and decided to make good of it. He said, you know what? I made a mistake the first time I had it. Let's be the good guy now. And this is where you really start to see that come out through the eyes of people who hate him.
There's also a lot of great reasons why Jordan has to be canceled now. With the point of view of Gabrielle and then also kind of her reading Tovine's mind. Because of what's going on there, the relationship that she has with Logain and her interesting thoughts on it, because she's clearly not very experienced in this regard.
Yeah, but also you see a little bit of that female clawing for position here, because they're trying to be Logain's number one servant, realistically. When really he doesn't want a number one servant. He wants companions. He's kind of
companions and companionship. That is especially from and this is the thing that is interesting here is Jordan is kind of doing the walk a mile in another man's moccasins thing here, except that you're forced to do it because they're kind of inside his head and she's inside his. So you see that what we've talked about, the assuming the worst and the negativity from them, and as as a male, you know exactly what's going through Logain's head, and the things that confuse them, what's going on, but to them it's a total mystery.
Well, and here's an interesting little nugget too. What we see is, and this is a parallel to kind of our biblical series with man dominating the woman, because we're physically more powerful. Well, because of the bond, he could force them to do whatever he wants them to. But we actually get no instances of him doing that. He can force his will upon these women, but he still asks every single freaking time. The only thing I think he forced was don't run away back in the beginning or something like that. And that was that understandable because you had a bunch of reds trying to take out the whole tower.
Yep.
You know, you had to at least have that one little thing. Don't run away. But that's the only instance we get. Other than that, he doesn't force a single thing upon these women, even though he can.
Even though he can, and not just from the bond, he is physically bigger and he is one of the most powerful male channelers, which means he's way stronger than they are.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in the power as well. So he could on multiple levels force them to do what he wants, and he doesn't.
Yeah,
And
I think
that
according
they
to the
don't
cheat
really
book,
get it.
he's barely a tick under Rand, and
Yeah.
he's right there with Ishii and with all of the strongest channelers.
Mm-hmm. So something that hadn't occurred to me before, as was why I enjoy our rereads here, is that the the kind of main uh uh through line for that Logain scene, that Garbrel scene, and you get a little bit of that of at the end with Tovine, basically saying you need to do whatever use your womanly wiles to make sure we go with him wherever he's going. Um, and the kind of the fun way she's thinking about that, the amusing way she's thinking about that, um, that it took her work before he would give in to that, because and that should have been their first clue of, oh, he's not the monster we thought, because he's so concerned about their well-being that he doesn't want to have schnoo time, because he thinks that if he's the inference there is that he's worried that it's under obligation or duress. It's not what she really wants, and so it took her extra effort to actually get him in bed.
Mm-hmm.
How does the next scene end? Because now we jump to the tower, and Yukiri tells Maidani, yeah, go try and seduce Elida. You will do this.
You will do this. And she uses
Yeah.
compulsion to do so, because if you force an
Mm-hmm.
oath of obeyance and you use it, we saw this in the series too, that is compulsion. That is evil.
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, I actually don't know how they got around the three oaths doing that, because compulsion is considered a weapon. So they can't use compulsion because
Mm-hmm.
of the three oaths, but she can use that oath. That
Because
actually,
in their minds they're traitors.
yeah, but
So
you can't use a weapon against a human
I
unless
know,
you're so
but
it's
they are able to rationalize it in their own minds, because, well, these are rebels and traitors.
mm,
So this is the least they deserve. They should be getting even worse than this, but we are protecting them from the law. We're protecting them from the consequences they should get. But it is an interesting contrast I hadn't thought of before, of right after the scene that's basically about how Logain is a decent person, and now here you have the high and mighty in the White Tower, and it ends with Yukiri compelling someone to basically lay back and think of England.
yeah. That's why the series is so problematic, because the guy was doing a good thing and
Mm-hmm.
Captain Marvel didn't save the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's
There you go. All right, so
oh my
now
gosh,
Gawain.
women are humans too. Amazing. Now,
All
yeah,
right,
then we get
so
to Gawain, so we get to see the bad part of guys. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
here's my note on this is, and as I got to thinking about it, um I had a lot of ideas bouncing around in my head already, because this morning I was listening to Jimmy Carr with Chris Williamson, because Williamson's not one of my regulars, but he might become one, just because I know we try not to overlap the streams, but I really enjoy the way he interviews people.
yeah, but he's got such a
Um,
range on the people he interviews, it's not
yes,
really overlapping.
but Jimmy Carr is one of my favorite active comedians, one of my favorite comedians of today. And in large part because of his wit, which I find amusing, because he talks about craft and structure and the work of actually writing jokes, and yet to me his funniest bits are when he invites the audience to heckle them and then he destroys them. But anyway, so things like what's the term Williamson used, the menopause, the menopause for effeminate men of today, and things like that. Anyway, you would almost think that Jordan had an insight on where men were going to end up, and that's Gawain. Because
Mm.
Gawain,
Oh,
the more
yeah,
the more I think
he's
about
he's
him,
he's the embodiment of where Jordan thinks that the current man is going.
he this is what you see here in this scene, and it only grows from where we last saw him, and it's only going to get worse. So this was Crossroads was published in 2003, so we weren't quite there yet, but you were starting to get this arrested development idea amongst young men. And I think Gawain is a great example of that because he has so much going for him, but he has analysis paralysis, and he doesn't know what he wants. He doesn't know. He's so uh overly impaired by worrying about what he thinks he should do based off of others, that he has never bothered to figure out you know what he what is right to him. And you can kind of see that arc later. um uh when stuff happens to Egwene, when his storyline finally comes back to Egwene. And so with this scene, you can kind of see, I think, what Jordan was trying to set up. Oh, oh,
Yeah,
that's
but
that's definitely going to be one later, because
we
that's for
did we did have a Tower Girls session here, and every time I do the go back to Yukiri for a second, every time I read these names, this is what I think about too. It's like, come on, Jordan, give us a little bit of a
that's a great point.
distinction without a difference here.
So I think what you're seeing here in this scene, and again, it's sad that it fizzles out, and we'll talk more about it when we actually get to Godwin scenes. I don't think there's one in this book. I think it starts to happen later, but in Knife of Dreams, this is, I think, Gawain starting to think for himself. Now, sadly, it kind of fizzles out because he doesn't follow through on what should be beginning here, which is, why the hell am I here? Why did I blindly go along with the tower? Why am I still going along with the tower?
Mm-hmm.
These people not only do not have my best interest in heart, but they're they're opposed to my sister, who's the person I'm supposedly sworn to. And the whole reason I lost my mind in the first place was supposed to be because of what Sawan did to Elaine.
Yeah, I know Jordan was going for the Egwene love story thing, but realistically, when you read these through, even the first time you read them through, you're like, Gawain, you should be in Camelin as soon as your sister got there.
Yes.
We should this prologue should be him getting a letter that was his sister is back in the palace and him going there, and then the rest of the story goes. But I think that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest fumbles in this whole
Or
series.
or at the end of the book, he finds out, and that's what finally breaks him away from the White Tower, um, and the younglings. Because I really, my thought when reading this is,
No, but he
this
takes the
is
younglings
Gawain.
with him. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the army she needs right now.
that's a good point. Yeah. Or you know what? That would be a better point, because, yeah, minor spoiler, but who cares? Because nobody likes Godwin. When he does finally break away, he abandons the younglings, which to me is doubly bad, because you understand that, yes, he feels bad because the younglings all went to become warders. So they are all pledged more or less to the tower. But that's what they were. That's not what they are now. That's not what they became. And they became something different under you. And now you're abandoning them. So you see here in this scene, Godwin, yay, you're finally starting to think for himself. It's sad that it just kind of fizzles out and it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
All right, moving along.
Yeah, we'll spend as little time on Gawain is possible.
You get a fun scene here from Davram Bashir's perspective, because you don't
Yeah.
get a lot of his perspective.
Well, and one of the
Um,
cool minor characters is Bale as well.
one of the cool minor
So,
characters, but then also much like what I talked about with Rodell at the very beginning here, and you have little nuggets of world building here where you get to see a little more of the Saldean culture, and kind of who they are as a people, and how Davram is a little what's his wife's name? I'm brain farting. No, not Tanovia. That's
Mullane.
yes. Uh, so he and
That's
his
one of his
wife.
wives. Remember,
No,
I
that
can't remember the other
Bale,
ones.
Bale, not Bashir,
Oh,
not
Bashir.
not
Oh, yeah, it's D something.
Dira.
Dylan. Dira.
Uh, yeah. So you get how they're a little different. I like there's a point in here where the ladies in waiting all think they're odd because they don't yell at each other. So they're not sure what to make of their relationship because they don't yell at each other like good Saldeans should. Um,
Yeah, but I do like that Jordan keeps going back to this dynamic of who's got the authority in public is the one that's submissive in private,
mhm.
because that's actually the way people are. You're people with
Hmm.
fetishes of domination. The guy that likes to get his crotch kicked by the stripper is the high powered attorney. He has a job of status and
Hmm.
power and everything, and then when they get into their personal lives, a lot of times they like to flip that, and we keep seeing it over and over and over again in these uh
Oh.
the guy who gets kicked down at work is the guy who goes home and abuses his wife too. So you got the flip side to it, and it's not positive, but it exists.
All right, and then we get the last big chunk. We get a sizable chunk of going back to Karheen, and it's from one of the followers of Cad Sewin from her point of view. Uh, and it's cool because it's one of the few times you actually something actually gets tied up quickly. We just saw Logan a few pages ago, and he's going somewhere, and oh, Logan's in Karheen all of a sudden. That's where he is. What's he doing? Well, we'll find out later, but it is nifty that you actually get a little bit of resolution there already. All right. So that's I know I had a lot of rambling thoughts on the prologue, but now we get into I believe it's 4 good Matt chapters here. And so those were the notes I had. And I was curious your thoughts here with Matt. Um, the thing that jumped out at me right off the bat is uh, if you're going to have a character arc, well, then that character needs to be different at a later point than he was at an earlier point.
Oh,
And so, but he's still the same character. So this is from Matt's point of view. So we're in his head listening to a lot of bitching and moaning. But and tell me if you think I'm wrong here. This is different from when he was bitching and moaning at the end of The Dragon Reborn and saying, you know, I'm not coming after you. Don't expect me to bail you out. What are you doing standing there, Standar? Let's go after them. We have to help them. This is more about his you know internal recriminations and griping at the world. It's not really about him. It's about I've got all these people I'm responsible for, and on top of that, now you add to that oh, what's his bucket? I just brain farted on the circus leader guy here,
Val and Luca.
Val and Luca.
Yeah.
So not only do you have all of these other people that you're
With his
responsible for
well-turned calves, according
with
to
his well-turned
Nynaeve.
calves,
Yeah,
yes.
well-turned calves.
So you've got all these people you're responsible for, but now you're also endangering Vol and Luca because if you're discovered, they could be in danger too. And so now it's not this sucks, my life sucks, I need to get out of here. It's we need to get out of here. I need to get these people out of here. I need to get these people away from the Sanshin. The farther away from the Sanshin I get them, the sooner I get them, the better things will be. So
Mhm.
that was kind of the first thing to jump out at me, because it's basically the entire first chapter is Matt kind of bitching and moaning, but it's different, and it really jumped out at me, and I think that's worth noting.
Well, what I think you see over the course of the books, and this is where Sanderson fumbled the ball big time, was I think one of the themes Jordan was working towards that you don't get in the last three books is Matt as not just the scoundrel, but Matt becoming the father.
Hmm.
He had Ulver, he's taking care of people,
Mm,
he's becoming more responsible. Yeah, he likes to still go to the tavern and hang out with his buddies, but when it comes down to it, he goes and does his job and he
yeah,
brings home the bacon, and then he just needs a little release here and there. And what we see is a very paternalistic fold that he's kind of building into his character, and then we just see it just completely stop when the Sanderson books start. Which, I mean, Sanderson admits he did not understand Matt,
yeah.
and then he thinks he got it back by the last one, and I think he completely even got it worse.
I think it started to get better in the
Mm-hmm.
second book, and then it kind of fell off again in the third one.
Well, what we see, and this is something we can all identify with as middle-aged men, is the scoundrel growing up is what we see. He's just doing it in fast forward because he has a
Yes.
lot of people responsible for him and the
and
world
and
in
he has a lot of
developed.
help because he has all those extra memories in his head from older men
Yep.
that are now starting to seamlessly become. He has passed the point now, because it was a couple of books ago that he was thinking about how, you know those he has to work hard to remember, oh no, that's my memory, that's somebody else's memory,
Mm-hmm.
because they all kind of run together if he doesn't really concentrate on it.
Yeah, and that springboarded him, but I think the character development was all Matt. There's no the past memories don't create his personality. They just give him the knowledge he needs to use it. And as he grows and becomes more responsible, I mean, maybe it's just me. I don't think it's just me because every time I think I have something unique, I find it somewhere else.
Yeah,
But when everybody says, "Oh, your life changes when you get married." No, your life doesn't change when you get married. Your life changes when you have children.
that was a big thing Carr and Williamson were talking about. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't gotten that far in that one because I only watched like 10 minutes of that one. Uh, but I might watch the rest of that one today.
So
But
it's so let
it's
me I
yeah.
like the way he says it. Jimmy Carr, the way he frames it is, I thought I had like a low stress, easy life, but what I was actually doing was I was playing a game with a cheat code. It wasn't even low stress. It was no risk. It was nothing. It was playing a game with a cheat code. And I liked the way that he framed that. And then now you have kids, and all of a sudden, oh crap, now that's just got real.
Yeah, it's someone, when you take risks and you're the only one that gets hurt by it, you're kind of fine with that as a guy. I jumped the ramp with my bike when I was 10 years old and I busted my knee, but it was just me. I mean, that was part of being a boy. But
Mhm.
now I've got a kid on the back of my bike with me while I'm jumping the ramp. Maybe I'll take it a little bit differently, right?
Mhm.
So he's going through this process without actually having children of his own. He's becoming that kind of man. He's becoming his father, who's not a drunkard. He he's becoming Abel Cawthon.
Well,
And,
you know what? That's a good point. That when we first start to see, because the Matt we first see, we don't actually see him very much, because he very quickly finds the dagger, and then that he starts to get corrupted, and so he's not quite right. It's really not until Dragon Reborn, and I think I said this at the time, he really starts to become a fan favorite, I think, and one of mine, because you're actually seeing him, because now the influence of the dagger is gone, and you get to see who he is and why he is. And from the very beginning, his most iconic scene is when he thumps Gawain and Galen,
mhm.
and he's thinking about and talking about his father at that point. That's where he began. And we're actually going to see that here now later in this book again, with the horse trading. That's going to come up. I think it's this book, or is it the next book? Nah, I can't remember now. But there's a scene coming up where he actually, you know, Jordan actually takes the time because he's mentioned this before and he's made reference to how Matt knows horses, and now we get an actual, you know, scene where he goes in and he starts, him and Han and horse trading with this guy, and it all started with his father, and now you see it kind of coming to fruition where he has thought about this man, he has made reference to him, and now he's actually becoming him.
Yeah, well, and it also gives you a little bit of it makes you feel for him, because not only does he think about his father, but he thinks about it in a way of, I've got all these other memories in my head, but this one is mine.
Mm.
This father that I'm taking after over time is my father.
And there's an interesting contrast here. So skipping to chapter 2, just for the title, Two Captains. So the first chapter is all in his head, basically getting us caught up on what happened, just literally what happened when last we saw him, and then the impact, the ramifications of that. But then, going forward, we have what was teased at the end of the last book, which was uh Eganin. She instinctively, reflexively wants to take charge, but she doesn't understand that this isn't her this isn't her area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Matt's the one in charge here, and he needs to be the one in charge because you're over your head. And in fact, another, again, just a new random thought popping into my head while we were talking. Eganin is the Gawain story we should have got,
Yeah.
because in a lot of ways, their stories mirror each other. These are people with ability, physical and mental ability that has put them in a position of authority, and then that rug is pulled out from under them, and now they have to figure out, who am I now without the stuff that I had? Who am I when you strip all that away? And she figures it out. Galwin never really figures it out, and that's why he's such a disappointing character, because Ganon actually figures it out, and you're starting to see that here, and I think that's part of the point of the contrast between her and Matt, and that contrast is arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't know what she doesn't know, and so she's being the ship captain, she's taking charge. Matt, because he comes from humble beginnings, is naturally more humble. And that's what you see when you see him having self-doubt, when you see him trying to think things through and going, did I make the right decision here? Am I about to make the right decision here? Or am I about to make another wrong decision? Because he has natural humility, because let me look at where he came from. Not that long ago, he was getting his butt paddled for stealing pies and playing pranks.
Yeah.
And he came from a place of, humble working class, is the as we would say now, type of people. And we don't really know where Gannon came from in her personal life, but from what we know of the Sanshin, it's a safe bet that since a teenager, she has been in a martial lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
working her way up a military hierarchy.
Yeah, and you didn't get that privilege. You were kind of chose for it. I mean, it's the Shanshan are the stereotypical fancy version of communists, right? You are a gymnast for our country, so you are therefore
Mm,
training from that from like 3 years old.
yeah.
So they identified something in her at a very young age, that she was going to be a ship captain, and they go with it, And she was good enough at it to become part of the blood by the end. So it's definitely, I mean, they made the right decision, but you're right. It is I don't want to use the word privilege at that point, but it is a life path that has been chosen for you from the beginning. And that, I mean, you don't want to use the word privilege, because that could have led to her death very early in life as well, because she's a ship captain on a warship that fights wars, and she could be dead already. But you know, it's Matt had to actually cognitively accept the path he's on,
Mm,
which he still doesn't at this
yes.
point.
Yeah.
she's basically brainwashed into that position.
I mean, we talked about that back in book 4, that was parent's arc, and that's why, to your point, Jordan kind of wrote himself into a corner with Perrin, because that was basically the point of book 4 for Perrin, was him accepting this is my path in life, and Matt continues to fight it. We see that in the next book, still Matt fighting it with him. People think he's this big damn hero because he keeps finding these fights, and he ultimately is the one who kills what's his bucket. The whole time he's trying to get out of there.
Yeah.
The whole time he's trying to find a way out, and he can't, but he still refuses out of just stubbornness of, no, the wheel's not choosing my life, I'm choosing my life, damn it.
Yeah, which is the contrast here because you talk about Aegeanin, but also Tuan. We talked about ad nauseum in the last episode how it's the prophecies that she knows is kind of happening, and she's resigned to the fate. Well, when you believe in fate, then you get that mindset of, well, you should listen to me because I was fated to be a ship captain. I am this thing. You're just some farmer that happens to be good with a staff and lucky.
And that's an interesting point, because the point I made last time, and you see here going forward with Matt's very bizarre courtship of Tuan, is what is happening is Tuan is testing these omens and this foretelling or prophecy that she heard on the ship. She's testing it. She's curious. She you can tell very early on, this is someone, her great strength, that she is intellectually curious, as well as, for the as much as someone born in her position can be, intellectually honest. And that's why she's much more open to Matt than she should be, based on their respective positions in life. She should be even more dismissive of Matt than Yannon is, but she's not, because she's intellectually curious and intellectually honest. And she's going to, it's not that she's resigned that this is what fate has said. It's that, this is what the omens say. Let me test it to see if because she obviously believes in the omens, but she has enough intellectual honesty to say, but that doesn't mean this is the thing that fulfills that omen.
Yeah, and this is where things like fate and human nature make things blurry because we're all over 18 years old. We've all been in that situation where you just kind of vibed with someone right away, and she wants this to happen. So she's also looking for omens to push her in the right way.
That's an
Where
interesting point that I
yeah.
hadn't thought of. Yeah, that as because that is something that pops up, and we'll focus in on that when we actually later on, when we get some Tawan points of view, that and this is something Matt kind of, I think at one point he has this thought of, for all of her maturity, because she is, it's at one point we get her age, and I think she's 18 years old. But of course, where she grew up, and the more you find out about the the imperial household, I mean, it is Byzantine and the Ottomans and the Medicis, and all rolled into one. I mean, it is a nightmare of backstabbing. So she had to grow up very quickly, but she's still only 18 years old. So there is going to be a whimsical childlike element there of this is my first love. This is an adventure. This is, this is storybook, and I want this to be, because this is exciting.
Yeah, and I think it adds an element to it, whereas where she comes from, marriages would be arranged, right? Whereas, yes, she has the omens, but this is an outsider. This is nobody that you would be forced to marry. This is still ultimately your choice, even though the gods or whatever push you in that direction. It's not your mother saying this is your husband. And I think that adds a layer to it. But
Mhm.
one of my best friends, he was, like a bachelor runner up and everything. And you don't think I've watched women talk do mental gymnastics
Mhm.
around saying I want this is the right thing for me right now, and I'm just like, yeah, you keep telling yourself that, honey. We'll put you in the Rolodex. Email me later.
Well, and the
Yeah,
the flip side of that coin is the guy who's a simp
yeah,
that we've talked
exactly.
about.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
you rationalize it in your head, because you so desperately want that thing, and that thing being those boobies over there.
Uh,
So you rationalize all sorts of stupid things in your head. You rationalize it in a different way than a woman does
yeah,
because we're different.
yeah,
Lo and
yeah.
behold.
And we're in that position with Tuan right now, and even Matt, because Matt is he's fighting the fate, but also you see him progressively saying, well, I do like her eyes, and maybe I do like a little boyishly slim. Oh, you know what, she's smart and she's really good at stones, and it's just you just see this progressively going forward.
But you also get some of that same element, just speaking broadly here, of what we're going to see going forward, and then we can talk about specifics when we get there, is it also becomes exciting for him.
Mm-hmm.
But in your favorite example, Ulysses S. Grant, a failure in everything except marriage and war.
Yep.
When he starts thinking about his interactions with Tuan as tactics, he starts thinking about things tactically, he actually starts to have fun. It becomes exciting in the same way that you kind of get glimpses of, because you don't get as much of her point of view, but you start to get glimpses of, yeah, Tuan's still an 18-year-old girl and she's having fun. In fact, you kind of see that with Seleucia is kind of where they butt heads a little bit, because Seleucia's concern is keeping the daughter of the Nine Moons safe. That's all she cares about.
Yeah, and all I want to be is Matt's wingman here, because then I could be flirting with Seleucia the whole time because she sounds hot. I think Jordan like really points out that he kind of alludes to the fact that she's like a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, that no, I don't think he alludes to it. I mean, he pretty much lays it out, because one of the points of Seleucia is that you dismiss her because she just looks too hot. So she's eye candy. She's the eye candy handmaiden of this noble. That way you don't notice the fact that she's hiding like 9 knives on her body.
Yeah, and I will cross that road when we get there, the 9 knives, but she does have an amazing bosom according to the text.
According to that. All right, well, let's pause there a second so I can go get a refill and an ice pack. And then we're actually going to start to get into some of this meat with Matt going in to talk to
Giggity.
Tuan. All right, so got a refill here, and now we are into chapter 3, a fan of colors, and Matt saying he's not afraid of
See,
Tawan, and then he
Jordan is
spends five
progressive. He's a
pages.
fan of colors.
Yeah.
Yes. Did I just get us
And we're
canceled?
canceled. And we're canceled.
And we're canceled. God dang it.
All right, so he's wandering around camp, and then
I meant rainbow
um,
flags.
on page 137, he finally goes into uh, there is some fun stuff in all the setup there, but the main thing is when he finally goes into the wagon where Satal and Tuan and Seleucia are. Um, and right off the bat, uh, I I I mean, right off the bat, you get not just you know motivation and characterization for who Tuan is, but it's one of the reasons Bob Ross is so fun to watch isn't just because of his, laconic style, but his painting style is incredible, because you look at what the end product is going to be, and then when he starts, he's just brushing a color onto canvas. And it's because he's layering, he's setting up layers, and in his head, he can see the finished product and he knows what each layer is going to do. And that's why Jordan's writing is so engaging, because he keeps adding on layers. And I love that the first thing out of Tawan's mouth is she's pissed off that the cover story is, first of all, that she's a servant, which pisses her off, and then that she's a thieving servant. And now she's so mad she's about to throw a chamber pot at his head.
And I like the reaction by the other women is, don't throw that. We may need that. Here's
Yes,
a
we'll
cup.
need that later. Yeah,
we
here's
got
this.
we got lots of these.
Yeah, I love the that's a great point, because we don't get a ton of this, which makes sense because your main character is male, and when you look at the main characters, three of them are male, and they have mentors, right? And so that male, that young man to older man mentor relationship was probably a lot more natural for Jordan to write, because he would have had a number of those through his life, through school, and then the Citadel, and then the Marines, and then on into his professional life. And you don't get a ton of it with the women, so it is fun to see. And you have to think that the reason that Satal and Cilicia are acting the way they are, primarily, especially Satal, who knows about Cilicia, but I get the impression that she knows what's going on here. And so she's going to help in her own way. Because I remember, this is someone who I'm pretty sure she's a grandmother by now, or
Yeah.
close
She
to it.
talks about having like 10
She has
adult
adult
children.
age
Yeah.
children that she has at least a few that she has married off or has been engaged. I mean, we've seen some of them, so we know she has adult age children, daughters. In fact, she has a couple of daughters, we know, because we've seen them working at the inn. And so there's an amusing, mentor relationship here with Satal, in her own way, trying to help Tawan navigate courtship on this side of the Earth Ocean. And I think that's why one of the reasons these scenes work so well is because she just kind of slips into that role, and there's no exposition there. There's no need for it. It's just, it makes sense. And even if you don't think about it on that level, you're going to get it on a subconscious level, because of all the layering, because of all the groundwork that Jordan has laid, that, oh, of course, it makes perfect sense that this is how Satal Anan is acting, because it's a different setting, but it's still in keeping with what we've seen of her character before. Yeah, she's the one that hands the cup to Tuan, and we have plenty of these, she murmured, and hands her ammunition. Matt shot her an indignant look, but her hazel eyes, talking about Satal, eyes twinkled with amusement. Amusement! She was supposed to be guarding those two. She was still guarding them, but she's also helping in ways that Matt can't really understand, because he's not a mother of grown daughters. Um, I also like that because there was a crash. So of course, good old Harnan, is thumping on the door. Do you need help in there? And it's Satal who answers, we have everything well in hand. Matt might disagree, but Satal's decided she's in charge here. Um, uh,
No, this is fun because it's a good exchange. First of all, this is why modern Star Wars is so bad compared to the original 3 episodes, because this is R2D2 and C3PO in the original episodes, where they kind of bumble around a little bit and it makes it a little bit funny, but it's still serious. Matt is bumbling around, Harnan is trying to do his best, and Anan is doing her thing, and everybody's bumbling kind of falls into a little bit of comic relief here, versus Jar Jar Binks, which is in your face. I mean, we even get to this is actually very very much a way to piss a woman off, to make it that is 20 years old to act like she's a child. And he asks how old she is. And she immediately gets as angry as she's been the whole time. Where when you've dealt with women for a long time, which I've done in my professional career, and please, if you know me professionally, don't watch these episodes. But the women that are under 30 always want to be treated as if they're older. Women who are over 35 always want to be treated as if they're younger. There's a sweet spot between 30 and 35. Women are kind of happy for about 5 years when it comes to their age. And so Tuan is in that point where she wants to be older. And she any kind of reference to her being a child because of the way she looks.
Yeah, and that has to be amplified by the fact that she is so petite that, I'm going to get in trouble once again for using this analogy, but I once asked my wife why she was getting all dressed up, looking, oh, you had a big meeting at the office? No, I have to go into the middle school today. So why are you getting dressed up? And then she got mad and yelled at me because someone asked me for a hall pass last time.
Yeah, but I have heard this out of your wife's mouth. You're not allowed to leave when she hits the poof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, we'll find a meme for it. All right.
Yeah.
There's so much good fun in here, and to me, one of the things that makes these scenes so great, and eventually you get a little bit of an insight when you start to get some Tawan point of view, but I love the interactions between Tawan and Seleucia, and we only kind of know what their relationship is because when we first saw her and we got a little bit of an insight with them talking, bantering to each other, so we kind of know what this relationship is between. I can't remember the position. I can't remember her title, but Seleucia as her chief handmaiden, and then Tawan as the high noble. There's, but even we don't really know what that relationship is. And so there's an amusing bit of mystery when you start to get interactions between the two of them, because Matt is clearly clueless because he knows even less than we do. But even our information is incomplete. And I think that's one of the things that makes the whole sequence so much fun is Matt kind of being doubly perplexed because he's perplexed at, all right, I can't treat this girl the way I would a tavern maid. But I don't know what to do, and I don't even know if I want to do it. And then on top of that, there are certain times where they just act so alien. So it's taking men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and then just adding another level to that we're not even in the same solar system anymore. So for instance, on 139, that halfway down, so Matt goes through his little speech of, look, this is what's going on. You're in no danger. No one wants ransom. Once we're safely away, I will set you loose with, whatever you need to make sure you get home safely. And I just, it's just one of those little nuggets that kind of jumps out at me. And I find it very interesting that Tawan's big dark eyes crackled, heat lightning in a night sky. But she said, it seems I will see what your promises are worth, toy. At her feet, Seleucia hissed like a doused cat, her head half turning as if to object. But Tawan's left hand wiggled, and the blue-eyed woman blushed and went silent. I like the mystery of why did Seleucia react like that? We have no idea. We can only guess. But to me, that's what makes this whole scene, this whole sequence in this book and the next so much fun.
Well, I like your analogy of layers earlier, because we get so many layers here because we continue with the conversation where he's basically pissing her off and pissing her off and pissing her off. And then you get a thought inside his head where he just kind of just makes a flippant comment here in a second. I was just curious, making conversation. I'm only a little older myself. and it diffused the whole situation. When Matt overthinks, he messes up.
Mhm.
But when he's pushed into a corner, he kind of just like he gives that little smirk and a smile, and uh, it just becomes his old self. And all of a sudden, everybody kind of relaxes a little bit.
Mhm. Um, that's a good point because right after this, so if she's gonna call me Toy, well then I'm calling you Tuan. I don't care what I'm supposed to call you. Um, so he's already kind of started that, and that's gonna escalate here. But I like the answer me a question, Tuan. He said he thought he heard Satal murmur "fool," but so you know, going on and on praising Satal, she's actually wrong here. Matt's right. This is how he has to deal with her. This is how he has to deal with Tawan. He's
Mhm.
actually making the right choice here, but
Because he's
Satal
being
thinks he's
himself.
stepping in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's being himself. And if he was to attract her in any other way than being himself, it would be forced. And what
Mhm.
we see from Matt, what we see from Perrin and Rand is when they try to force things, things go wrong. But why we love Matt is because he's so good at just taking a step back, taking a deep breath, and then saying, well, what would Matt do right now? Matt is going to run. Oh, I just killed Couladin.
Oh, she's even older than I thought she was. She's 20.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so when she does the math in her head of the way apparently there are places around the world, apparently South Korea is one of those that like they're a year off for some reason. Like they count their birthdays different, which
Mm-hmm.
always hurts my brain. Anyway, um yeah, I love the when he asks how old are you, to his surprise that dangerous spark burst into flame and she's just completely pissed off of, and as she ends it here, are you satisfied, Toy? Did you fear you had stolen a child? She almost hissed the last word. Matt waved his hands in front of him, frantically dismissing the suggestion, and he actually does diffuse it very seamlessly. uh to your point, when he's being instinctual, he knows what he's doing. All right, and then we get to the point on page 141 that I referenced earlier, but didn't want to go into too much last time because I couldn't remember where it happened. But this is what I was referring to when I was talking about Tuan testing the omens. So she's not resigned to her fate. She's intrigued. She's excited, like we've talked about, but she's also a clever individual. So she's going to test this. And she catches Matt completely off guard with this question out of nowhere of, do you remember Hawkswing's face? Mistress Anon blinked in surprise, and Seleucia sat up on the bed frowning. And we, the reader, know, or will know later, or you should have been able to infer that I think Seleucia is doing that because she probably heard the prophecy
Mm-hmm.
that there wouldn't have been very many people close enough to hear. In fact, I think that's one of the things Tuan thinks in Winter's heart, um, is that others weren't sure why she lost her temper, but that's because there wouldn't have been others close enough to hear. But I suspect Seleucia knows, and so now I think she's having a Spaceballs Virgin alarm moment here. Of, wait a minute, what do you mean? What are you talking about? This guy, this buffoon? Um, and and then
This is actually a very important scene that I didn't get till we're over analyzing everything.
mhm,
Not only does he remember Hawkwing's face, we could have gotten remembering Hawkwing's face in Falm. But what we got was remembering
mhm,
Hawkwing's face when Hawkwing killed him.
mhm.
And when we think of Matt as an individual, getting married is death. So I don't think it's any surprise. I don't think it's any accident that this memory is what bubbles up.
Mhm.
We could have had a,
And
yeah, we could have had a real Matt memory of
and he
Falm.
thinks he hated to remember dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, those memories are starting to become seamless. So it isn't Kulain died, it's I died,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, Drawing a deep breath, he took care, choosing his words. This was no time to go spouting the old tongue. Of course I don't. Right. Um, yeah, and yeah, well, we can dwell on that more because I think when we finally get a Tuan perspective, she's actually thinking about this moment, about asking him this question. All right. Um,
I like how she tells him he's not pretty enough.
yes, you're not pretty enough for a cupbearer, but it may please me to have you for one. Uh, let's see. Oh, I I forgot about again being instinctive, and I love the way he seals the deal. Your customs are earthy, but she likes it, because again, you know, this isn't just the omens. This isn't just, I mean, she's been wrapped up in literally life or death politics probably since she was about 12 or 13 is probably about the time she started having to act like an adult and was free game to anyone who could take her out if they could do so because that's the way this world works. The Sanchin imperial family and this has to be fun and exciting for her. She's slumming it.
Yeah, it's the old what do we get from Game of Thrones? The daughter that goes out in the streets and hangs out with the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. um all right, what's next?
Oh, she blindsides him again though with that comment. Your customs are earthy, and she clasps hands, but then she ends it with, "What does the writing on your spear mean?"
Oh yeah. Again.
She keeps hitting him from different angles, and he's just
Yep.
like,
Yep.
yeah.
And he's having to be extra quick on his feet because he's finally met a a mental match. You know, um, really, Tom's the only one, and you see that when they play Stones, that Tom's really the only one that can keep up with Matt.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to mental gymnastics, and now he's met someone who's as good, if not better, than Tom. And on top of that, he's he's got the I'm fated to marry you thing in the back of his head, and also the lizard brain is going, well, she's not so bad. Yeah. So that part is also starting. Um,
Is this where we find out that
that
Tylan?
Tylan was killed by the
Yeah,
golem.
Tylan was killed. Yeah.
Yeah, this is an interesting exchange here, and it's
Yeah, this is where we get a little bit of what you were talking about, where he's getting this mental mind fuck
yeah,
of it's my
yeah,
fault.
it's my fault.
Which
I
he should
this.
know better, because it doesn't matter that she was tied up.
And
The
it's
thing would have killed her no matter
exactly.
what. Yeah.
But it's piling on top of where we started here in chapter 1, which is him sitting there looking out over the bay, counting the number of burnt hulks of ships and wondering how many actually got away. Did I actually do more good than harm here? And now he got away from that. He's rationalizing. He knows, the general part of him knows this is what happens. But now you have a gut punch here because now we're going back to that, except now it's personal. Because it wasn't just I set some wind fighter free and told her how to help her friends and let him go. No, this was your lover for what, months? Wouldn't you say it's been months that they've been here in Iwudar?
Yeah, at least because remember his leg had to heal too.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a long time. I mean, I'm assuming it was a broken leg from the way they described it. So you're looking at 3-4 months just for that to set and be able to walk on.
Adding to the layers of the oddity of their growing, the beginning of their relationship here is the way Tuan reacts, which is it's a credit to you that you cared so deeply for her, but then where is it? So 146. A golem, Tawan murmured wryly. Suddenly, she rapped Matt hard on the top of the head with her knuckles. Clapping a hand to his scalp, he stared over his shoulder incredulously. I'm very happy that you show loyalty to Thailand, Toy, she told him in a severe voice, but I won't have superstition in you. Says the lady who governs her life by the omens. I will not have it. It does Thailand no honor. So on the one hand, she has no problem with the fact that this potential future husband of hers was a toy and shacked up with this older woman for months. In fact, she's okay. Not only is she okay with it, it's a credit to him that he had such strong feelings for her and mourns her death. But then, you know, total bipolar, manic, depressive, crazy lady, and now she's smacking him in the head. All right. Um, but then to your point, this is another one of those. I think he's doing this on instinct. Is when so it the scene ends with someone telling him um that Jolene wants to talk to him, and
Yeah, and
interestingly,
and the problem is Matt has all these women in his life that
mhm.
keep trying to pull him away from Tuan, and
And yeah, it is very interesting that immediately Tawan is jealous, which is amusing, you know, on its own. But then you add another layer to that of, and now Matt's going to tweak that because just instinctively, one, he wants to because she just smacked him in the head and he's annoyed by that.
Mhm.
But also, I think instinctively he knows I can't be caught off balance by that. I need to get some of my own back. I need to keep her a little off balance.
Which this is something that every guy should know. If you want to pick up hot chicks, show up with a hot chick. Make a friend that's a hot chick and be friend zone. That's fine, but show up with her, and then other girls will be like, "Oh, well, I can get in on that action because she apparently sees something in this guy."
Yeah.
And this is un it's something no one wants to admit to, but it the data suggests that this is the correct thing.
Yep. Yep.
uh a lot of data suggests that this is
All
the
right.
correct thing.
Well, we've been rambling for a while, and chapter 4 I really like, but I don't know if there's much to say on it. Um, except uh Furik Karid, however you say his name, is a prime example of Jordan's character writing because he immediately becomes an incredible beloved side character just with one chapter of work. But not only that, Jordan is also using this chapter to reinforce who Tawan is. You know, in much the same way that Tawan just said, you know what, it's a credit to you that you show, devotion to Thailand. Um, so how Matt reacts to her death tells Tawan something about Matt. How Khared and the other Death Watch guards, how they feel about
Yeah,
Tuwan
I looked
as
in
a
the back for
person.
a pronunciation, and for some reason, this major character we don't get a pronunciation
Oh,
for.
really? That's
Yeah,
inconvenient.
yeah.
But
I would have
we
said
learn,
Kharid, but
yeah,
I'm doing
we
phonetics
learn a
here. So
lot about Tuwan in this chapter, just from how him primarily, but then as we, as he gathers some others of the Death Watch guard and some of the Soldam to him, and you see their devotion to her, this is someone different. This is someone unique amongst the blood. Because what we have mostly seen among the Sanshin, except for Turak, because with this seeker here, and we've seen him before. Um, you get an inkling that the servants who committed seppuku after Turak's death, it wasn't necessarily just obligation, that he apparently engendered a fair amount of devotion amongst his followers.
which is why I hate the laziness of Hollywood right now,
Yes.
because I love in fiction the noble enemy.
Yes.
The noble enemy is the best storyline ever,
Yep.
and we completely missed that with Turok.
Well, it was why um that's not even remotely how he should look. Just I'm looking on the Wheel of Time wiki, and that's a terrible artwork. But it's why the end of the MCU landed so well, is because Marvel's biggest problem in their lead up to the end of that, first arc of stuff, was the forgettable bad guys. You kept having these bad guys whose names you can't remember, and then the good guy would defeat them in that movie. All right, that's good for building
Yeah,
up your
but
characters,
then
but
Thanos had actually a character arc to him.
but
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you introduce Thanos, and then you see who he is. They took the time to establish this is someone interesting.
Well, it's like the Michael Keaton original Batman. When you see who the Joker was,
Mm-hmm.
and you see what drives him crazy and why he's the way he is, and that's what made that movie so good, because Jack Nicholson was the best Joker ever. Sorry Heath Ledger, but or even there's been a lot of good Jokers. The only one I don't like is 30
Jared
Seconds
Leto
to
was
Mars. Yeah,
awful.
Jared Leto. Yeah. But I think that's the interpretation of him. I don't mind Jared Leto as an actor. I just think they tried to make him too modern.
Yeah.
And but no, Jack Nicholson was great. The guy who was Caesar, not Caesar, in Gladiator. He was the Roman.
The guy who
What's
played
his?
Marcus Aurelius?
No, the guy who played the
Oh, Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin
yeah,
Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix did a good job, but I mean, Jack Nicholson was the original, and we got he was a gangsta, and so he was already a bad dude.
Mm-hmm.
But then he had this really bad thing happen to him, so he went a little bit crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't we don't get that with a whole lot of the villains in these new series, because it's just like, oh, this is a bad guy. Let's kill him in one thing because we need this scene to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here you get, I mean, you get the fact that he's a badass pretty much right off, and then if you needed reinforcement of that, the picture of him standing there with the one arm behind his back and a cup that is a skull, and that he's drinking out of, and we the few times we have seen him, we have gotten the Seekers are scary dudes, and he's staring him down. So you're getting that he's a badass, but then you get those personal elements in there of, what happened to his family, and why he's so devoted to Tawan, the story with the doll, which is a phenomenal story for both of them, because it tells you so much about who he is, and what's going to happen because you know even before you see it, he is going to find her. He is dedicated to finding her. And so now the only question is, so what's going to happen when he does, which is, one of the reasons Knife of Dreams is up there for me, with the great books of the early part of the series. And you also get something of Tawan. I love that story of, even as who's a child who is young enough that she's still carrying around a doll, and yet she still has to be mature enough to say, I know it's not really, but maybe you'll think of. I mean, she even says out loud the symbolism of it because she's already figured that out because she has to. And this is how this person grew up. So that scene tells you a lot about what's going to happen to Matt here in this book, and then through Knife of Dreams, with, this is the person he's sparring with, basically. This is the person he's courting.
Well, and this is a good contrast of the books, and this might be a good place to go ahead and call it. With all the supporting characters that come in, we get this trauma that sets them up to be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the reasons the heroes are the heroes is because they didn't deal with that. They came from the two rivers, which was sheltered, and
That's a good point.
it was the growing up in a normal family, and all of a sudden I'm exposed to all of this horribleness. And how do I handle it? Whereas Reread, the Death Watch guard, he would just kill whoever's in front of him to get to his goal. But we get someone like Rand, who has to go through the mental process of, do I kill this person? Or Matt, who is like, should I even be here?
Mm-hmm.
Or Perrin, who it takes, the love of his life being captured for him to go a little bit crazy. And so we get this contrast of people who were built for this, who were made for this, and then the people who were kind of thrust into the life. And that's why they're the heroes, because we root for them, because they shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be the one saving the world. The person who is the psychopath should be the one killing the Dark One, right? Should be the one leading the armies that hundreds of thousands of people die in here in a little bit. So it's it is that humanity that keeps everything together.
Very good point, and a very good place to end it. Especially since next week we're going to have to talk about the humanity of Perrin and the awful slog that is his storyline.
Yeah,
that's where we go next
There's a
time.
wolf on the next headliner there.
Yep. So we will be into Perrin's storyline next time, which should go a lot quicker because I don't think we want to dwell too long on that.
No, yeah, I mean, I can summarize it right now. Fael captured. People not so bad as the feminist wokies want to say are online, are trying to help her, and Perrin comes and kills them. There we go. There's your spoiler.
The end.
The end. Yeah. Yeah. That's a sad story because Roland, I actually feel for Roland.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're supposed to, but
no, not according to the feminists, because he's a rapist, even though he never actually acts on it, which is the point we made with Logain.
That's a good point.
He had the position and never acts on it. That's actually the best.
In fact, he stopped some other
Yeah.
people from doing it.
Yeah, it's not okay to be a not dangerous man. It's the best to be a dangerous man that doesn't act on it. And
Well, that's a great point, and that was something we skipped over with Logain's scene, which was when that lackey of Taim comes up, and he makes a comment about the two Aes Sedai. Are you betting them both, Logain? And Logain gets very cold and serious, and Gabrielle is legitimately concerned that he's about to kill this guy, but then also confused of, why are you standing up for us? Because that's the kind of person he is, because that is masculinity properly understood, which is strength, restrained and reserved until it is needed.
Which is I'll end it on probably one of the best things about this book series is Robert Jordan took characters that were supposed to be enemies and made you love them. And Logain was one of those. He was a false dragon. He should have been the person that took a fall on Rand's rise to the top.
He should have been Taim.
He
That's
should have, yeah. And we get a dichotomy there. We get the two sides of that equation. We get the guy who had that power and became good, and we get the guy who had that power and couldn't stand being second. And actually, I love Taim as a character too. So the one thing we missed, I think, was a good showdown between Logain and Taim, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
That to me is one of the bigger disappointments of the whole series.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that through that whole last book, and we never get it, which to me was I don't care if it's, expected. There are times where the expected is what should happen.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. And it's the only good part of the prequels in Star Wars was the Darth Maul fight scene with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it was completely expected. It went exactly how you expected it to be, but it was still freaking cool. And it was still the best moment in that whole all three movies there. That's what we could have had there. And I don't know, whether it was a Jordan Notes or a Sanderson thing, I don't know, because we're in spoiler section. So if you are still here, please go away. Was it Egwene that killed Time? Was that her sacrifice?
I think so.
Yeah, I think her sacrifice killed Time, right? Which I know was a parallel with the Black Tower versus the White Tower.
Yes.
But the Logain Taim fight probably would have been better.
Well, and the whole point of Logain versus Taim is the whole point of Cadsuin to me. It's the Logain leads the faction, and Logain has to kind of relearn himself because of the trauma he goes through at the end. But I mean, the whole point is he leads the faction that remembers that they're still human. That's why they're out in the woods hiking and climbing.
Logain and Cadsuin coming together at the end would have been the end result of that. Whereas with Egwene destroying herself to destroy Taim, you still have a White Tower versus Black Tower.
You still have you still have a hard break there.
So yeah, it was something missed, just like Tam and Abel being the people who killed the Mandrid. That would have been awesome. I think Abel would have been best, but I would have understood Tam being the one.
Yeah,
Tam,
that would have been
Tam
great.
with the fox head on him.
Yeah,
but that would have been cool. But I want whoever has the notes to throw it into Chat GPT and see what comes out as the actual ending of the books, because I think it would get it better than Sanderson did.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will be that for today, and we will have political philosophical nonsense on Wednesday, and then we'll get into Parent's storyline on Friday.
Yeah, and I got an exam on Wednesday, so we'll probably keep it a little bit brief, but
have fun with that. All right, we'll see y'all then.
All right, later.